Okay, so this section is on Boolean multiplication part 3, and I'm actually going to copy a large section of the Boolean addition part 3 and move it down to here. And the first thing that we're going to look at is the various combinations. So we've created 4 variables, b1, b2, b3 and b4, and instead of doing the additions we are now going to do the multiplications. So we're going to have all of the different combinations that are available to us, which is a false times by a false times by a true times by a false, and finally a true times by a true. And we should remember also that falses evaluate to the number 0 and true evaluates to the number 1. So we can also do a print statement on all of our various booleans that we have created, or our variables at least that represent the booleans that we've created, and we can do multiplications in each one of these. And what we're actually getting from this print statement, and if we hover over each one of these variables or any one of these variables, we can see that b1 is actually of type integer, and we are typecasting this integer into a boolean using this method here, the bool method. And this returns true when the argument is true and returns false otherwise. And the reason that we need to do this is because false times by a false, or any two booleans, when they're put into an arithmetic operation, they're converted into their integer components, which is either a 0 or a 1 for a false or a true. So the resulting variable is going to look like an integer to the Python interpreter, and therefore we have to do the type conversion ourselves. Now, when we do run this, down below we see that we have a false times by a false is a false times by a true is a false, a true times by a false is a false, and the only line in here which evaluates to true is a true times a true, which is true. So this is the complete complement of the Boolean addition. If we just scroll up to our Boolean addition section, we see here in the Boolean additions that a false plus a false is a false, and everything else evaluates to true. So there's only one odd one out in the Boolean additions, which is a false plus a false, and the only odd one out in the Boolean multiplications is a true times a true. And one of these behaves as an AND gate and the other one behaves as an OR gate in terms of logical operations. And in fact, it is the Boolean multiplications that behave as an AND gate, because we need everything to be true in order to return a true back. And it looks like in the Boolean additions that this behaves like an OR gate, because if any of these are true, if this one is true or this one is true, then we will get a true back. So that is Boolean multiplications part 3, and it's the end of our Boolean logic section.